with the George Floyd incident, we saw not only the officer who had his knee on Mr. Floyd's neck, which was hard for anyone to watch. We saw other officers not intervene. And from a training perspective, our officers in general, Chief Davis, and then specific to Evanston, Chief Cook, are they trained that if they are with another officer who is not following protocol, to intervene? And
so
and not only intervene, but then report them, because lots of incidents happen. There's nobody there other than maybe a suspect and the police to then report that.
So historically, I don't think that has been pushed. That's a cultural thing, and it's becoming more of a policy thing. People are specifically putting those measures in their policies now. I know it's now in my policy, and it was not that specific thing. You would think that you wouldn't have to tell somebody that to stop killing this guy. You would think that wouldn't be something. Policies and procedures are supposed to be guidelines. They don't cover every little thing, but that's where culture comes into place. Culture comes into place, and there's the culture within the organization affects the way that people act within the organization. And for somebody not to have the wherewithal to have stopped that incident was a cultural thing. And from a person, all the training in the world, it doesn't change the culture. So it's got to be a two-pronged approach, and putting systems in place so that officers not only are held accountable from a policy standpoint, but they're safe. They feel safe, and to be able to report these officers and report these circumstances. All those things have to be taken into account for things to happen. So to answer your question, quite honestly, it hasn't been. I don't believe it's been taught a whole lot. It may be now it's at the forefront. Now things are at the forefront. But once again, you would think that you wouldn't have to specifically put that, but we've gotten to the point where obviously we do.
Yeah, right. Thank you, Chief Cook.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with Chief Davis. I could remember that code of silence with respect to how people were handled in the past, where it was clearly several officers on the scene watching a particular incident go down, and it was an injury to a person. And by the time the paperwork was completed, either everybody had the same story, or you had individuals that would say, I was there, but I didn't see anything. But a number of years ago, in my perspective, from here in Evanston, under Chief Frank Kaminsky, they started holding officers accountable who were on the scene, who should have known. If I'm on the scene, and this was prior to body cameras, if we felt that you were at the scene and you were actively involved in whatever investigation or arrest was going on, it is your duty to say something. And that always didn't happen, as Chief Davis said. But it has become more prevalent in policy. In particular, is part of the Lexapol policies. The Lexapol is a standard general order based on Illinois law that a number of police departments utilize. But I think cost prohibits a lot of departments from purchasing those orders. And in the use of force order under the Lexapol policies, it's a section for duty to intercede. And that basically says that it is your duty as a police officer to stop another police officer from overstepping the law and what's permissible under the law against a suspect. So we have that in our policies here. And like Chief Davis said, the organizational culture in law enforcement is a problem. So how do you deal with changing the organizational culture? You constantly preach what you expect. Whenever we review these situations, use of force, first thing we go to is the body cameras, and we look at who's around. We look at everybody's body camera, and then we determine, even if it's a supervisor, because supervisor responsibility is held to a greater standard than just a police officer. So that is how we base taking action and moving forward, and hopefully over time changing that organizational culture.